Hey folks, if you want to stay ahead of the storm and never miss a critical weather update, be sure to follow Sky Alert USA. Your support keeps us going, so go ahead and subscribe, like, and drop us a comment. We appreciate every single one of you tuning in. Breaking weather alert. Arctic blast grips North America. Major winter storm system unleashes dangerous conditions across USA and Canada. January 17th, 2026. Weather update. Good morning, weather watchers. This is your Sky Alert USA, bringing you critical weather updates for January 17th, 2026. We're tracking a major winter weather event that's creating dangerous conditions across vast portions of the United States and Canada, with the polar vortex driving one of the most significant cold air outbreaks of the winter season. Current weather situation. January 17th, 2026. As we head into the weekend, North America is experiencing a dramatic shift in weather patterns driven by a disrupted polar vortex. Over 170 million Americans are currently facing below-average temperatures, with the situation expected to intensify over the coming days. This is not just another winter cold snap. This is a prolonged Arctic invasion that meteorologists are warning will persist through the end of January. Active storm systems and winter warnings. Right now, 8 states across the central and northern United States are under winter storm warnings, with conditions being described by the National Weather Service as dangerous. The affected regions span from the Dakotas through the Midwest and into the Great Lakes region, with impacts extending all the way to the northeast coast. The northern and central high plains are experiencing extreme conditions with wind gusts exceeding 70 miles per hour. These hurricane-force winds, combined with heavy snowfall and plummeting temperatures, are creating whiteout conditions that make travel nearly impossible in many areas. Snow squalls are sweeping through the region, with visibility dropping to 0 in minutes and snow accumulation rates reaching 1 to 2 inches per hour. Michigan is facing particularly severe conditions, with some areas expecting 8 inches of snow or more. The combination of heavy snow and powerful winds is creating massive snowdrifts that are blocking roads and stranding vehicles. State police have reported multiple multi-vehicle accidents, including a devastating 30-vehicle pileup on Interstate 80 in Elkhart County, Indiana, where at least 10 semi-trucks were involved. The cause? Blowing snow that reduced visibility to near 0 in a matter of seconds. Lake effect snow machine in overdrive. The Great Lakes region is experiencing intense lake effect snow events that are producing some of the heaviest snowfall totals of the season. Winter storm warnings and lake effect snow warnings remain in effect through the weekend, across portions of Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan, and Indiana. The Cleveland metropolitan area is seeing consistent lake-effect snow, with whiteout conditions expected to continue through this morning. Snow is falling at rates that can produce several inches per hour in the most intense bands. These aren't widespread snow events, they're narrow, focused bands of extremely heavy snow that can dump a foot or more in just a few hours, while areas just miles away see nothing. Western New York is bracing for potentially historic snowfall. Oswego and Watertown counties could see between 12 and 24 inches of snow by the end of this event. Northern Indiana and southwest Michigan are under winter storm warnings, with lake effect enhancement expected to push totals into the 6 to 12-inch range near the state line. The lake effect snow bands intensified dramatically on January 14th, creating whiteout travel conditions along the southern shores of Lake Michigan. Intense wind gusts blasted areas like Benton Harbor, Michigan, where Fox weather correspondents reported snow and sand being driven sideways by the powerful winds. More than a foot of snow piled up in some areas between Wednesday afternoon and Thursday. Canada facing multiple storms. Our neighbours to the north are dealing with their own significant weather challenges. An active weather pattern is bringing multiple storms to eastern Canada, while the prairies are experiencing snow and gusty winds. The good news is that British Columbia is enjoying relatively quiet and mild conditions, providing a brief respite from the winter onslaught. Eastern Canada, particularly the provinces of Ontario and Quebec, is seeing repeated waves of winter weather. On January 15th, the Toronto area was slammed with a major snowstorm that the weather agency upgraded from a yellow alert to an orange alert. This significant winter storm created chaos for drivers, commuters, and pedestrians across the Greater Toronto area. Environment Canada meteorologist Monica Vaswani explained that the upgrade was necessary due to increased snowfall predictions and the impact on a major metropolitan area like Toronto. The storm brought 5 to 10 centimetres of snow to some areas, with other locations seeing 15 to 25 centimetres. Roads across the GTA were paralysed as highways, expressways and interior roads were covered in significant amounts of snow, with black ice creating extremely slippery conditions. Toronto Pearson International Airport experienced dozens of cancellations and delays, adding to the travel chaos. Newfoundland is under multiple winter storm and wind warnings, with strong winds creating dangerous blowing snow conditions. The combination of heavy snow and powerful winds has prompted authorities to urge residents to avoid unnecessary travel. The polar vortex connection. Understanding what's driving this extreme weather is crucial. The polar vortex is a large area of low pressure and cold air surrounding the Earth's poles. Normally, when this circulation is strong, it keeps the coldest air locked up over the Arctic. However, when it weakens or becomes disrupted, frigid air can escape and plunge southward into the mid-latitudes. Right now, we're experiencing what meteorologists call a stretched or displaced polar vortex. Instead of one concentrated area of extremely cold air over the North Pole, the vortex has elongated, creating multiple lobes or cold legs that are driving Arctic air into both the eastern United States and Europe simultaneously. A sudden stratospheric warming event was detected in late November and early December, which dealt a strong blow to the polar vortex. These warming events occur when the temperature and pressure in the stratosphere suddenly increase, disrupting the normal circulation pattern. The effects of these stratospheric events can take weeks to fully materialize at the surface, which is exactly what we're seeing now in mid-January. The latest analysis shows the polar vortex has been split into two distinct lobes, with one driving cold air into eastern North America and another affecting Europe. This disruption allows Arctic air to more freely escape the polar regions, and the effects can last for weeks or even months. Temperature forecast and outlook. The temperature forecast for the next 72 hours is nothing short of remarkable. Arctic air is surging southward from Canada, creating a direct cold air corridor extending from southern and eastern Canada into the northern and eastern United States, covering a large portion of the Midwest. By today, Friday, January 17th, temperatures will drop 10 to 20 degrees below average across much of the eastern United States. The frigid air is even reaching deep into the south, with freeze warnings extending into Florida. Jacksonville and Daytona Beach could see freezing temperatures, while Tallahassee is forecast to drop to 26 degrees Fahrenheit. To put this in perspective, Denver, located 1,630 miles away and at an elevation 5,155 feet higher, is forecast to be warmer than Tallahassee. Saturday will bring a second surge of bitter cold air to the upper Midwest, where high temperatures may struggle to reach just 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Cities like Minneapolis and Chicago could see wind chills plunging to -10 to -20 degrees by Sunday. This deep freeze will persist through the weekend and into early next week. The NFL playoff game between the Bears and Rams in Chicago on Sunday night could break records as one of the coldest Bears playoff games ever recorded. Fans attending the game will need to take extreme precautions against the dangerous cold. Looking ahead to next week, the pattern shows no signs of significant moderation. The displaced polar vortex will keep the coldest air parked over North America, bringing prolonged periods of cold to the eastern portion of the lower 48 states through the end of January. Multiple rounds of Arctic air are expected to sweep through the region, with brief periods of slight moderation between waves. Forecast models suggest that the two lobes of the polar vortex may begin to recombine later in the month, which could actually strengthen the overall vortex. If the entire core of the polar vortex shifts away from the pole and toward Canada, it would create a direct channel for even more frigid temperatures to flow into the United States during the final week of January. 3-day forecast breakdown. Day 1, Friday, January 17th, 2026. The Arctic cold front continues its southward march. Snow squalls will create extremely dangerous travel conditions from the northern plains through the Midwest and into the Ohio Valley. These squalls produce heavy snow rates and strong gusty winds that can reduce visibility to near zero in seconds. Lake effect snow will intensify downwind of Lakes Erie and Ontario and into the interior northeast. The Cleveland area will see consistent lake effect snow with potential whiteout conditions. Western and central New York will experience heavy lake effect snow with accumulations of 12 to 24 inches possible in the hardest hit areas. Very gusty winds will affect much of the northern and central plains, with sustained winds of 30 to 40 miles per hour and gusts exceeding 70 miles per hour in exposed areas. These winds will create extensive blowing and drifting snow, making some roads impassable even where snow accumulations are relatively light. Temperatures will crash across the eastern two-thirds of the country. Afternoon highs will struggle to reach the 20s and 30s from the Great Lakes into the northeast, while overnight lows will dip well below freezing. The cold air will reach far enough south to threaten sensitive vegetation in parts of the southeast. Day 2, Saturday, January 18th, 2026. A Clipper storm system will slide southeast from Canada, renewing snowfall across the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. While widespread accumulations will be light at first, snow will intensify downwind of the lakes as colder air deepens. This will re-energize persistent snow bands capable of producing locally heavy accumulation. Lake effect snow will continue to pile up downwind of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, with upward of a foot possible over the next couple of days as cold air continues moving over the relatively warmer lake waters. The narrow snow bands will create dramatic differences in snow totals over short distances. The second shot of bitter cold air will hit the upper Midwest, where high temperatures may not exceed 10 degrees Fahrenheit. This will be some of the coldest air of the season so far for many locations. Wind chills will be life-threatening, dropping to -10 to -20 degrees or lower in Minneapolis, Chicago, and surrounding areas. The deep freeze will persist across the Midwest and Northeast, with below-average temperatures covering most areas east of the Rockies. Meanwhile, the western United States will remain unusually mild, with temperatures running well above average under a strong ridge of high pressure. Day 3, Sunday, January 19th, 2026. Deep troughing aloft will continue to cause chilly below-average temperatures across the east, with favorable conditions for lake-effect snow continuing into early next week. The trough may broaden westward as we head toward the middle of next week. Lake-effect snow will persist across the Great Lakes region, though the most intense bands may shift position as wind directions change. Even small shifts in wind direction can cause rapid changes in which communities see the heaviest snow, so residents in lake-effect-prone areas need to stay alert to changing conditions. The coldest air of this outbreak may settle in across the Midwest and Northeast, with morning lows reaching their lowest values of the event. Some areas could see temperatures 20 to 30 degrees below average for mid-January. The combination of extreme cold and gusty winds will create dangerous wind chill values. Travel conditions will remain hazardous across much of the northern tier of states due to the combination of lake-effect snow, blowing snow, and extreme cold. The NFL playoff game in Chicago will face potentially record-breaking cold temperatures for an evening kickoff. Catastrophic weather warnings and alerts. The National Weather Service has issued multiple high-level warnings that residents must take seriously. Winter storm warnings remain in effect for 8 states, including portions of the Dakotas, Nebraska, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. These warnings indicate that significant winter weather producing substantial impacts is occurring or imminent. Travel will become difficult or impossible in some situations, and residents are urged to delay travel plans until conditions improve. Snow squall warnings are particularly dangerous and have been issued across the northern plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes. Snow squalls create an extremely dangerous combination of heavy snow rates, strong gusty winds, and sudden drops in visibility. Conditions can change from clear skies to whiteout in less than a minute. These warnings often trigger wireless emergency alerts on smartphones to inform motorists of impending danger. On January 14th, Chicago's O'Hare and Midway international airports reported quarter-mile visibility after snow squall warnings were issued, leading to thousands of delayed flights. The National Weather Service emphasizes that if you encounter a snow squall while driving, the safest action is to pull off the road in a safe location and wait for the squall to pass. Lake effect. Snow warnings are in effect for millions of people in Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and Michigan. These warnings indicate that heavy lake effect snow will produce significant snowfall accumulation. Lake effect snow develops in narrow bands and impacts limited areas. But these bands can produce very heavy snow with sudden restrictions in visibility. Motorists need to be prepared for conditions to change from clear to whiteout in seconds. If you must travel, keep an extra flashlight, food, and water in your vehicle in case of emergency. The most persistent lake snow bands could produce 8 to 12 inches or more. Wind chill warnings are in effect for portions of the upper Midwest, where the combination of very cold air and strong winds will create dangerously low wind chill values. This level of wind chill will result in frostbite and lead to hypothermia if precautions are not taken. Exposed skin can freeze in as little as 10 to 15 minutes in these conditions. Residents are urged to avoid going outdoors if possible, and if you must venture outside, wear warm protective clothing in layers, covering all exposed skin. High wind warnings were issued for more than 114 million people across the eastern United States as the cold front moved through. Wind gusts above 70 miles per hour have been reported in parts of the high plains, causing extensive blowing and drifting snow and creating near-zero visibility conditions. These powerful winds can cause tree damage and power outages. Residents should secure loose outdoor objects and be prepared for potential power interruptions during the peak of the storm. Travel across the affected regions is extremely hazardous and in many cases just not recommended. The combination of heavy snow, blowing snow, ice and extreme cold has created, honestly, some of the most dangerous travel conditions of the winter season. Multiple multi-vehicle accidents have been reported across the Midwest and Great Lakes region. The 30-vehicle pileup in Indiana that involved at least 10 semi-trucks is just one example of how quickly conditions can deteriorate out there. State police attributed the crash to blowing snow that greatly reduced visibility. Air travel has been significantly disrupted too. Chicago's airports saw thousands of delays on January 14th due to snow squall conditions, and Toronto Pearson International Airport experienced dozens of cancellations and delays during the January 15th snowstorm. Travelers are really urged to check their flight status before heading to the airport and to expect significant delays. Road conditions are extremely hazardous across affected areas. Many highways have been temporarily closed due to whiteout conditions and snow accumulation. The New York State Thruway, Interstate 80, Interstate 90, and other major routes have experienced periodic closures. Snowplows are working around the clock, but in many areas they just can't keep up with the rate of snowfall in the heaviest lake effect bands. Donner Pass in California may close for a time due to several feet of snow possible in the Sierra Nevada. This is a critical route for east-west travel, and its closure would force, some significant detours. Weather impacts on daily life? Well, they're about as widespread as I've ever seen. The extreme weather is affecting virtually every aspect of daily life across the affected regions. Schools have closed in many areas due to dangerous travel conditions and extreme cold. And, some districts have announced closures extending through the weekend because this event just keeps dragging on. Power outages have been reported in multiple states due to high winds downing power lines and heavy snow causing tree branches to fall. Utility crews are working hard to restore power, but access to some areas is difficult due to road conditions. Folks should be prepared for the possibility of extended outages and have emergency supplies on hand, like flashlights, batteries, water, and non-perishable food. The extreme cold is putting quite a strain on heating systems and causing concerns about natural gas and electricity demand. Residents are urged to conserve energy if possible to help prevent system overloads. Setting thermostats a few degrees lower than normal, closing blinds at night, and making sure homes are properly sealed can help reduce energy consumption. Homeless shelters and warming centres have extended hours and capacity across affected cities. The extreme cold poses a life-threatening risk to those without adequate shelter, and community organisations are working to make sure everyone has a warm place to stay. Agricultural impacts are also a concern. The sudden temperature drop and extreme cold can damage winter crops and harm livestock. Farmers are taking measures to protect animals and equipment from the harsh conditions. Regional breakdown. Let's get into it. The Great Lakes region is experiencing some of the most intense impacts, with lake-effect snow creating localized but extreme conditions. The relatively warm lake waters, combined with Arctic air flowing over them, are producing incredible snowfall rates. Some lake-effect snow bands are producing snowfall rates of 2 to 4 inches per hour. Ice coverage on the Great Lakes plummeted earlier in January due to a brief warm-up, falling to just 5.88% as of January 13th. This lack of ice means more open water is available to fuel lake-effect snow production. With colder air returning, ice coverage will increase, but for now, the lakes are acting as a massive moisture source for these heavy snow events. In the northeast corridor, they're seeing a combination of threats including lake-effect snow from Lake Ontario, snow squalls from Alberta Clipper systems, and the potential for a more significant storm system late in the weekend or early next week. Cities from Boston to Washington, D.C. need to monitor forecasts closely. The I-95 corridor experienced a quick-moving snow squall earlier this week that brought heavy snow and gusty winds, briefly reducing visibility to a quarter mile. While that particular event has passed, additional snow is possible through the weekend, especially in interior areas. The Midwestern plains are facing the brunt of the wind and cold. The combination of Arctic air, powerful winds and snow squalls has created extremely dangerous conditions. Agricultural areas are particularly vulnerable to the sustained high winds and extreme cold. Rural areas face additional challenges as blowing snow creates massive drifts that can close secondary roads for extended periods. Emergency services may have difficulty reaching remote locations. Now, the southern regions, well, the cold air has reached much farther south than normal for mid-January. Freeze warnings extend into the Florida Panhandle and southern Georgia. This poses risks to citrus crops and other sensitive vegetation. Folks in these areas, who aren't used to this kind of cold, need to protect pipes from freezing and ensure adequate heating. And up in Canada, eastern Canada continues to deal with multiple storm systems, while the prairies experience snow and gusty winds. Quebec and Ontario are seeing repeated waves of snow and ice, with travel remaining hazardous. Atlantic Canada faces wind warnings and winter storm warnings, particularly in Newfoundland, where the combination of heavy snow and strong winds is creating dangerous blowing snow conditions. Looking ahead, extended forecast, and, well, the news isn't all that rosy. The extended outlook through the end of January shows little relief from the cold pattern. The disrupted polar vortex will continue to funnel Arctic air into North America for at least the next 2 weeks. Multiple rounds of cold air are expected, with brief periods of slight moderation between waves. Another potential stratospheric warming event has been detected and may occur during the second week of January. This could further disrupt the polar vortex and extend the cold pattern even longer. The most recent forecast models show continued cold anomalies over North America through the final week of January. There's potential for additional winter storms as Alberta Clipper systems continue to track across the northern United States. While these systems individually may not produce massive snowfall, the cumulative effect of repeated events can lead to significant snow accumulation. The Great Lakes will continue to produce lake-effect snow events whenever wind patterns align favorably. Folks in lake-effect-prone areas should expect this to be an ongoing threat through the rest of winter. By late January or early February, some models suggest the possibility of the polar vortex lobes recombining, which could actually lead to even colder conditions if the strengthened vortex shifts over Canada. This remains uncertain, but it's a scenario forecasters are monitoring closely. Safety recommendations. Now, these are really important given the severity and duration of this weather event. Here are critical safety recommendations. For travel safety, avoid all unnecessary travel during the peak of the storm. If you must travel, make sure your vehicle is winter-ready with a full tank of gas, an emergency kit, blankets, water, snacks, and a charged cell phone. Tell someone your route and expected arrival time. Never attempt to drive through blowing snow with zero visibility. Pull over and wait. Keep your gas tank at least